Hello and welcome to part 1 of the 2022 Greater Sacramento Area Masters. We have the top 24 bowlers from yesterday's 6-game qualifier, and the winner will be decided by a 2-game matches in a double elimination bracket. I'm Kevin here with Alex. Let's get right into the action. Alright, we're going to start off here in round 1 with Danny Liu against Brian Tinsley. Now Brian qualified in 21st with a plus 96 for a 216 average in yesterday's qualifier. The pattern they're going to be bowling on is the Kegel Titanium 44 foot. If you want to know the more detailed pattern, you can look at the top right of your screen. It shows the volume and ratio as well. And Brian's shot coming in a little bit light, leaving just the 2-pin. Now these guys did just come off of 10 minutes of practice on this pair, so they should both have a pretty good understanding of what's going on these lanes. Here we have Danny Liu, who qualified in 12th yesterday with a plus 165 for a 227.5 average. And good looking shot there, leaving a 7. Messenger almost taking it out. Danny's been a bowler in the same area as me in the Stockton area for as long as I can remember, and I just found out that he's actually going to be inducted into the Stockton Hall of Fame next month. So congratulations, Danny. You definitely deserve it. He's a great guy on and off the lanes. Very approachable. If you ever want to come up and chit-chat with him, he's just one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. And second shot here coming in a little bit light, leaving a 3-pin. And covers up the spare nicely. Unfortunately, Alex and I were unable to make this event to bowl in it, so we're not going to be too familiar with how the lanes are playing as well as how they're going to break down. So you, the viewer at home, are going to kind of see pretty much the same thing we're seeing. We're not going to have too much insight as far as what to expect. It did seem like the lanes played pretty fair. If you were lined up correctly and you threw the shots, you were rewarded. If you were off the mark by a little bit, there were definitely some out of bounds and some penalties that left with some big splits and some bad carry. Now Brian coming in a good shot there, leaving just a 10-pin, picking it up. The scores in this tournament were not especially high. I believe there were no 300s through qualifying. I believe the highest game that I could see through the standing sheet was a 288 shot by John Gould. And Danny throwing another good shot there on the right lane, getting the strike. But it just seemed like a lot of these bowlers that were lined up very well were getting a lot of strikes, and when they weren't, they were leaving very easily makeable spares. And it seemed like on both sides of the lane, lucky break there with the 10-pin going down late. It seemed like, from what I noticed watching when I was recording this tournament, if you missed wide on either side of the lane, lefty or right-handed, there was definitely some out of bounds out there. So keep an eye on that. If you see a player miss too far wide or try to get the ball out too early, a lot of times it wouldn't come back. Good shot there for Brian, chipping to 5 late. Another 10-pin there for Brian on the left lane. So both these guys are in the pocket. First couple shots, maybe a little bit of first shot jitters, a little off the mark, but since then, both players in the pocket. It just comes down to carry at this point.
As Kevin did mention, we have no experience for not bowling this tournament, but we're still going to use some of our bowling knowledge and resources. Right now, looking at the lane surface, I'm going to, again, I wasn't there and I haven't talked to anybody about this bowling center, but it looks like it could be AMF HPLs, could have higher friction, or AMF SPLs, so it's going to have less friction. By the way, both of these bowlers are playing the lines a little more direct. Good shot there from Danny Liu. By keeping their angles in front of them, as Kevin mentioned, it, in a sense, making or leaving makeable spares, and then it just becomes getting the right ball in your hand. Danny throwing some equipment from Swag Bowling. I myself don't have too much knowledge of the products. I eventually need to learn some of it myself. We do see Danny and a few others from the Stockton area throw it, so if I ever approach you asking about equipment, inform me. Let me know what you're throwing, what you like, what's been the most used, and we can go from there. And then for Brian, he could either be throwing a 900 Global Reality or a Brunswick Defender. They both have that bluish purple pastel type of colors. They both roll very well, of course, if they see the volume the right way. Yank that one a little bit, leaving it a 6, 7, 10. But yeah, if we approach you, we'd like for you to be open with us and let us know what you're throwing. Maybe it could help out a brand you represent. It could be a good attempt there. It could be something that, in a sense, could help other bowlers be, more well-rounded and knowledgeable with equipment.
Yeah, and if you recognize the name Liu, Danny Liu, if you watch the Manteca Masters, his son, at just 16 years old, Lorenzo Liu, came up just short of the victory, coming in second place against Draco Holland. And Lorenzo, not a fluke in the Manteca Masters. He qualified into the bracket finals into this tournament as well. So, Danny, being a great mentor, definitely proving that he's got the talent as well as his kid. They both have a bunch of talent, and you're going to see both of these guys in a lot of finals and tournaments. And Danny, a very methodical bowler, definitely reads the lanes quite a bit more in depth than a lot of other people will. Every once in a while, you're going to see Danny kind of throw a shot, and just because it strikes doesn't mean that the job is done. He's always looking at his angles. He's always looking. There's that out of balance, kind of getting it a little bit left, and the ball doesn't want to come back. But there you go. There's that slow walk back where he's kind of replaying the shot in his mind while it's still fresh, and trying to decipher what it was that happened on that last shot. And that's something I look for when I notice a good bowler from a great bowler, is that ability to know what your mistakes were, whether it was you or the lane, and be able to figure out which moves to make, if any. And like I said, just because you get a strike doesn't mean that you can't improve on that. When you get a guy that tries to improve on a strike, it makes a much tougher competitor. And Brian just struggling on that right lane. He's perfect on lane 9. It's lane 10. He's yet to get a strike on it. I'm sorry, no, he did have 2 strikes on the right lane. It's the left lane that's giving him trouble. Well, again, getting it a little bit wide, leaving the 2-8-10. One of those kind of splits, you just go for the count, and only getting one, unfortunately. So Danny opening up a pretty early lead here. Throwing a 5-bagger in the middle of the game and being clean otherwise. Whereas Brian only has 3 strikes in the game and 2 opens already. If Danny can strike out here, he's going to open up a very big lead going into the second game. And a great shot there. Getting a little wide again, leaving just the 10 pin. But it looks like he felt like he threw a good shot, so maybe the lane's giving him something different than what he's expecting. So if I know Danny, this shot's going to be a little bit better, he's going to be a little bit better in the pocket. Yeah, there you go. So 238 for Danny. He's going to open up, like I said, a pretty early lead. Brian's going to have to strike out just to be down 57. And in a 2-game match, that's a pretty comfortable lead for Danny going into a second game in a 2-game match. Oh, there you go. All right. Not all breaks can be bad breaking, right? You can get a good break here and there too. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there seemed to be a little bit of out of bounds on the outside part of the lane, and it looks like Brian's kind of flirting with that line. If he gets it just a touch right, it stays way wide, and obviously if he pulls it a little bit inside, it's been taking off and going a little bit high. So advantage Danny. It seems like he's found the line where he can have a little bit of miss left and right, whereas Brian has to be almost perfect, and even when he is, he's been leaving the corners. And unfortunately missing that 10 pin only costs him 1 pin. But Danny can open up a 68 pin lead going into the second game. Again, getting that one a little bit wide, leaving just 3 pins. Pretty fortunate on all those shots that went wide to only be leaving single pins, because that's a very easy angle to leave a 3-7, as Danny's a left-handed, or a right-hander would be a 210. But cleaning up the spares nicely, staying clean is kind of the key on this pattern. It seemed like there was a lot of opportunities to leave some pretty big splits, so if you can mitigate those, you've had a lot of chances for success. And there you go, Brian missing a little bit, just a hair wide, and doesn't even hit the head pin. I wish I could tell you what move he should make, but I don't really know Brian's game that well, and as I mentioned earlier, I didn't bowl on this tournament, so I don't really know how the lanes are playing other than what I can see on this video. He covers up the spare nicely. If he can get on a roll in the next few frames, he can cut that lead down a little bit, but missing just a hair left and going high, leaving a 3 pin. Throwing a good shot on lane 10. Seems like that's his comfortable lane. Seems to be throwing better shots on there, or at least getting the ball reaction he's expecting. He's been missing a little bit light on lane 9, but I expect he's gonna figure this one out pretty soon. Yeah, and a much better shot. Looks like he maybe just softened up his speed a little, gave the ball more of a chance to come back. A great double there for Danny. Now, Alex, in a 2-game situation like this, if you know your opponent kind of struggling, you can see Brian's max score is going to be 449. If you're Danny, do you keep the pedal to the metal, or do you kind of just realize if you can shoot a 212, you automatically are going to shut him out? And now even less as he leads the 2.8. With a max score of 437, now Danny only needs a 200 to shoot 438 and shut him out. Do you just kind of use that as a benchmark of a score to shoot, or do you just go for 300 and as soon as you don't, you go for the next highest possible?
Personally, I'd go definitely pedal to the metal, as Brian goes Brooklyn there. I'd go pedal to the metal because you still have to execute. This is, in a sense, still your warm-up. I mean, on a 2-game double elimination, you're still going to either move on and bowl less, or you're going to lose and move on but bowl more. If you're in Danny's shoes, you're just trying to execute to the best of your abilities. You want to maintain your timing, your rhythm, your release. As we watch Danny throw his next shot. Good shot there for him. Yeah, pedal to the metal. Just again, keep everything in the same timing rhythm. If you again relax a little bit, maybe something in your physical game can get away from you, and it could be an important shot. It could be an important game. So that's just my theory on that one.
And I agree with you, but for a different reason. I agree, pedal to the metal all the time, but I'm more in the camp of I can only control what I can control. So, if I'm in Danny's position and coming in a little light again, unfortunately being a mixer 710. But if you're in Danny's position, you can only do what you're in control of. And so if you just bowl your best game, it doesn't really matter what your opponent's doing. Your best is your best, regardless. If you're always doing, going pedal to the metal, like I said, if it's enough, it's enough. If it's not, it's not. Kind of throwing in another factor of what your opponent's doing may kind of derail that mentality a little bit and throw off your focus. And if you only need, a certain score, you might let a couple of spares get away from you just because you only have to get to a certain point. And so if you just keep your focus and focus on your own game, those little mistakes may not get away from you. And meanwhile, Brian throwing a good shot on the right lane, getting his, I believe that's his first double of the match. He's definitely going to need a strikeout here, probably, to have any chance. And there you go, getting a light mixer, getting the 7 to fall a little bit late. So as it is, as I mentioned before, Brian maxing out at 437. Danny just needs a 200 even to shoot 438 to advance in the winner's bracket into round 2. Throwing a decent shot there. Ball didn't quite react as strong as you probably expected it to, getting a light mixer. But getting the strike, and that's what's important.
So as we are commentating in the match, we're going through our notes, and I'm actually messaging some bowlers just to make sure I have everything updated. And again, I'm learning as I'm going with some equipment that I'm working on. Danny said he was throwing the Big Bro KO from the swag line. Just gave him something for especially a pattern like this, and we'll definitely break into the pattern a little bit more as the matches progress. But again, this ball that he's currently using, I believe, would be the Big Bro KO and or the Big Bro Galaxy.
And there you go, Brian. Brian finding the line, getting it 4 in a row. Maybe one of those situations too little, too late, but he'll be able to take this shot and knowledge onto his next match, regardless of whether he wins or not. As this is a 2-game double elimination, if he loses here, it's not over for him. He can still make a run in the elimination bracket. Throwing another great shot there, 5 in a row. Good shot there for Danny, leaving the 7. He's definitely got more control on the lane 10. I don't think he's been out of the pocket. Oh, there's an unforced error there. What was I saying? The left lane seems to be giving him a little more issues. He's been coming in a little bit light. But making the correction on a few of the shots. Again, leaving a light, is it not left lane? Yeah, the light 710 in the 5th frame. It looks like that one's pretty wide as well. Yeah, so there's that out of bounds again, leaving the 136. And so maybe that's one of the situations where Danny knows he doesn't need a big game to move on, and I mean, only Danny's going to know what he's thinking. But it looks like he may be getting a little too comfortable and taking the situation for granted. But as Brian is starting to string strikes together, definitely going to keep Danny honest. Brian. It wasn't a bad shot. It's that being too close to that out of bounds, coming in light, leaving the 210. A situation where he almost has to go for it. And he gives it a good try. But with Brian maxing out now at 401 and Danny already at 411, Brian's mathematically already been eliminated from this match. So he'll move on to the eliminating bracket, and Danny's going to move on in the winner's bracket.
Just again, one key note on this tournament, it is in a modified sport shot, being the K Gold Titanium at 44 feet. Both of these bowlers, two different styles where you have Danny Liu getting around it a little bit more, and Brian seems to be rolling it. What type of bowling ball Brian is using, again, I couldn't tell you too much, or I can give you more of an idea on that one, where Danny gave me his input on his bowling balls, where again they're probably asymmetrical. They're going to pick up the lane a little bit better, and also too being able to get around it. It's probably getting off the edge of the. It's close, close. Again, just giving him maybe a better look. The ball picking up the lane a little bit better. Just again because if it's a pattern. If you're looking at the ratio where it says 1 to 4 or 4.21 to 1, these lanes are going to be a little bit tighter. If you go back and watch our videos on, say, like the GSA Masters, where the guys were striking from anywhere. Good shot there from Danny. From the GSA Masters, guys struck from anywhere. The ratio on a house shot could be anywhere from 8, 10, or 12 to 1, so they're going to be a little bit softer. Where if you have a pattern that's 1, 2, or even 4 to 1, they're going to be tighter, so shot making is going to be a premium, whereas, again, Danny's been doing just that.
Yeah, and I had a chance to talk to Daniel Ducoin, who ran this tournament, and when he told me when he came down to decision time of what kind of pattern he wanted to put out, he said he wanted to put out a pattern that was challenging but fair. He didn't want a strike fest. He didn't want guys to have to average 240 to make the cut. He wanted the bowlers who were throwing the ball the best to be able to have the advantage. And from what I've seen so far and what I saw when I was recording this tournament is mission accomplished. The guys that were throwing the better shots were definitely being rewarded with the higher scores. If you were a little off the mark, you were definitely going to pay the price. All right. Oh, go ahead.
Speaking of guys that can throw the ball very well.
Yeah, so here we are in round 2. I don't really think PJ Haggerty needs any kind of introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyway. He was the leader through qualifying, shooting a plus 293 for a 248.83 average. He was 30 pins clear of the next best guy at second place. He had the first round bye, so this is his first game of the day. But I mean, it's PJ, so you're going to expect some good bowling out of him, no matter what the pattern is. And speaking of good bowling, here we have Von Jaden, Olivia Cullabong. And I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. I've been away from the game for a number of years, and I had no idea that the junior program was producing bowlers like this. By the way, this kid is only 15 years old. I feel like when I was 15, I was a decent bowler. If I had to bowl against this kid, he would have taken my lunch money every single time. Throws an amazing ball, a lot of power at such a young age. It is really incredible and really fun to watch. But Von Jaden qualified in 17th with a plus 133 for a 222.17 average. He did bowl in round 1 where he defeated Lindell Jinks 419 to 361. So he's averaging 209.5 for the day. But again, with Von Jaden and Lorenzo Liu making the final of the bracket today, two junior bowlers, just unbelievable talent. And for those of you who follow the PBA West Regionals, PJ, fresh off his win at the Earl Anthony Open just a couple weeks ago, I believe, May 15th. So yeah, just a week ago. So PJ definitely been bowling good as of late. pretty tough draw for Von Jaden to be so young and bowling against arguably one of the hottest bowlers in the Central Valley right now. As PJ opens up with the first 3, kind of making a statement early. Going to put a lot of pressure on this young man, and I'm really excited to see how he handles it. Seems to be handling it just fine. That was a great shot. Von Jaden missing a little inside there, leaving just the 4-pin. With his speed and rev rate, it's going to afford him a little bit of room to miss, a little more than maybe say even PJ. Speed and revolutions just kind of gives you that little bit of an extra edge where you don't have to be quite as precise to get the job done. But PJ doesn't need the speed and revs; he's got the accuracy, so. He's gonna find a line on any pattern. Coming a little light there, leaving just a 7. Kind of as I mentioned before with Danny, that slow walk back where you're just kind of staring down at the pins. He's kind of just replaying the shot in his mind, and you don't see that a lot from PJ. You see a single pin. He didn't get the ball reaction he was expecting on the strike shot, and so that slow walk back, he's replaying that shot in his mind while it's still fresh in his memory. And trying to decipher what it was, what the mistake was. Was it him? Was it the lane? And using that in his next shot on that lane to try and better his ball reaction. Yeah, maybe just a little high there, leaving the 4-pin. Kind of hard to see as PJ stepped in front of the frame there. See if Von Jaden can make PJ pay the price for missing that 7-pin. Great shot. Coming in a little light, just leaving the 10-pin. I'm kind of curious now with all these kids they're coming up through the ranks now. How many of them are two-handed bowlers? It seems like all the ones that I see they're having a lot of success do have that two-handed release. It almost seems uncommon now to see a traditional, fingertip bowler. And I guess only time will tell as these kids get older and they're going to start making more appearances in these videos and making finals and tournaments. And PJ missing way wide there. He knew it right off his hand. Hits that out of bounds, leaving the 1-2, sorry. But it'd be interesting to see, how the game is being revolutionized, and at a very young age, these kids are finding a way to make it work and to be competitive with guys like PJ who are, lifelong achievement bowlers. And at just 15 years old, he's in the arena, with one of the best. Bit fortunate and unfortunate at the same time. It was a good shot. Unfortunately, leaving the 10-pin, but fortunate that the 7 did go down. Good cover there.
As we're now more than halfway through the match, just kind of watching both bowlers close to a similar line, maybe a similar break point, where Von Jaden is definitely a little more up the boards. As Kevin said, a little more speed. Maybe it doesn't have to be as super accurate, whereas PJ just seems to be more accurate and also has a more defined touch. Of course, PJ having more than a dozen plus years on Von Jaden bowling wise, he's in a sense able to hone his craft and work with more, whereas Von Jaden could still be raw. Maybe he's had a couple lessons or worked with the coach to improve his game, and as Von Jaden throws a good shot there, as also Von Jaden progresses in his bowling, maybe he could go collegiate, such as PJ. PJ went to Fresno State. If Von Jaden can go collegiate or continue working with coaches and honing his game, who knows where he'll end up.
Just as a little frame of reference, as you mentioned, PJ bowling for Fresno State. When PJ was bowling for college at Fresno State, that was about the same time Von Jaden was bowling. So put that into perspective. And PJ getting a light mixer there. Definitely PJ's flirting with that out of bounds a little more than Von Jaden is. Von Jaden going a lot more direct, as Alex had mentioned, kind of staying away from that area. Wants nothing to do with that out of bounds. And there's a shot there for PJ.
So PJ originally throwing a reality ball change there into what might be the altered reality. We'll wait here in a couple shots, see what he's throwing. Again, I wasn't there at the event, so Von Jaden throwing, if he's wearing a Hammer jersey, again, he could be maybe throwing a Hammer Web or a Hammer Web MB. The Hammer Web being a symmetrical pearl, something that'll get down lane. One of Hammer's mid-performance bowling balls. The Web MB is one of their mid-performance or with a weak ASIM in the Web MB. So again, down the road, eventually I'll either cross with Von Jaden or maybe end up in a match play finals with him, and after we can discuss of what he's using.
Great break there, tripping the 4-pin. And with a strike here and count, Von Jaden's going to take a lead going into the second game. Certainly on paper, it's not what you would expect the outcome to be with PJ's amazing record and how hot he's been as a bowler lately. But as it is, Von Jaden holding his own. Had that unfortunate missed 10-pin in the 6th frame, but otherwise, he's thrown just about every shot as good as he can. And there you have it. Von Jaden striking out for 237, and PJ very fortunate that this is a 2-game match and not just a 1-game, because otherwise he would be out. But PJ a chance to strike out, keep the match close at the 3 pins, which is certainly what he's going to try and do. He's been coming in a little light in the last few on this lane. We'll have to see what kind of adjustment he makes here. And again, a little light.
Again, PJ going from the reality. I'm 100% confident he was using that one. Now ball change to his altered. Good spare shot there. Ball changing to his altered. The reality is a solid, and the ball change to the altered being a pearl. He was probably trying to get to go a little down lane, maybe a little quicker off the spot. Seems like it has a little bit of surface, so it's slowing down maybe a little too much to the pocket. Maybe PJ can trick it with his hand a little bit. Let's watch this shot. Ball changing to something else.
And getting that one wide, getting that out of bounds, leaving the 1-2-8-10. So PJ with a 209, going to be down 28 pins to the young phenom over here. Lucky for PJ, it's a 2-game match, so he's going to have an opportunity to come back. But Von Jaden, don't let his age trick you. He's got a lot of talent, and looks like he's got the mental game to boot. Much better shot on that right lane for PJ. Again, coming just a little bit light. He definitely seems to be favoring the light hit over missing left. So far, it's afforded him a lot of easy spares to pick up, but when your opponent is striking, leaving makeable spares may not cut it. So we'll have to see if PJ elects to make another move to get more flush in the pocket, as he's not really getting a lot of mixing strikes. And Von Jaden just, how many is that now? 8 in a row. Now it's easy to watch this and say you could bowl that well against someone like PJ, but I promise you, in that situation, it's nervy. It's tough going up against somebody with that much prestige. And Von Jaden, as I keep saying, able to handle the situation very well. Unfortunately, missing a little inside there, leaving the 3-7. But he does have a decent lead at this point, so the missed spare going to tighten things up a little bit. But he gave himself that mistake. He gave himself room for that mistake by getting a lot of strikes before that. That's 2 in a row on lane 16. That was a lot more flush in the pocket for DJ. So we'll have to see what he does here on lane 15, as he's been coming in light on this lane also. Again, just a little light, but getting the strike this time. He's shaking his head a little bit, so he's definitely been making subtle moves that maybe it's hard for us to see. But it seems like he's getting a little frustrated. He thinks he's throwing good shots, and by all accounts he is, but not getting the reaction he's expecting. Von Jaden coming in a little bit high. Fortunately, just leaving the 10 pin. He came in a little bit high in the third frame also. So we'll have to see if that's a mistake on his part, or if the lanes are transitioning a little bit. If the lanes are transitioning, we're going to get an opportunity to see how he adjusts and how quickly he's able to adjust to keep up with it. And again, that's 3 in a row that drifting high. So I'm electing to say it's not him, it's the lane, and he's gonna have to figure it out. And unfortunately, chopping the 3-6 off the 10. So Von Jaden's lead is erased, in a sense. Max score, PJ can strike out and shut Von Jaden out with a 489 to Von Jaden's max of 469. Again, that's predicated on PJ getting the next 8 strikes, but at this level and the skill level that PJ has, that's not something you can ever count out. At any point, PJ can catch fire and just go off the sheet, which is what makes him so dangerous as a competitor.
as PJ is going to be halfway through 6 after this shot. PJ's ball changed into either what looks like a Zen Master or a Zen Soul. PJ, being on Storm Staff, gets early access to early releases. So if this is one of the Zens, again, it could be the Master or the Soul. The Soul is available in your Pro Shops May 22nd.
It looked like PJ tightened up his line a little bit there, not coming in light, hitting dead flush, getting the 10 to go out. I feel like at that angle, in the back of my mind, I always feel like it's going to be a 10 pin, but PJ, knowing his ball reaction, and I'm sure he knows that that shot's maybe the shot to be throwing. He's not going to be leaving the 10. But on Jaden making the adjustment, not coming in high, coming in just slightly light, maybe over-adjusting just a little bit, but getting the strike. He definitely needed a strike there, as PJ's kind of doing PJ things at this point. So important shot here for Von Jaden. A double here will give him some breathing room, and he'll get an opportunity to see what PJ does in his next step. And a great shot there. So looks like he made the right adjustment, and now he just has to repeat the shots.
As we're now more than halfway through 6, as Kevin said previously, in PJ's previous shot, he went up a little bit straighter. He was giving up a little more angle with the reality series, and now with this ball change, and possibly copying Von Jaden, maybe playing the lanes a little more direct. Good shot there by PJ. Question for you, Kevin. What would make you want to kind of stay more in line, maybe just make you parallel in, or what would make you want to kind of open up your angles? What do you have to see to make certain adjustments?
So if I were in this match, and I assume you're maybe talking about PJ as he changes lines up, if I was struggling to find a pocket, like PJ was coming in light fairly often in the first game, and my competitor is just blowing the rack every shot he's throwing, if I have the ability to copy the lines that my opponent is throwing, I'll try to do something similar. Sometimes if you don't have what it takes, or if you don't have the right line, you can look around and see who has figured it out, and try and emulate their shot as best you can. Obviously, PJ doesn't have the rev rate that Von Jaden does, but that doesn't mean he can't throw a ball that's more aggressive and throw a similar line and still get the same ball reaction in the end. Von Jaden coming in a little high again. I believe in the 6th frame he came in a little light, got a mixing strike, and before that was a couple shots high also. So leaving the 3-6, covering it nicely. PJ with a 21-pin lead with 2 frames to go. This is a very important shot for Von Jaden. Check pretty early, certainly earlier than he thought it would, leaving 4, 6, 7, 10. Pretty much going to derail his chances in this match, as that's almost a guaranteed open. Yeah, getting the 2. And Von Jaden with a max of 421, PJ is going to have 2 frames on a spare. He's only going to need 23 pins. So with a strike here, that'll be 20 of them right there, and they'll still have a frame to go.
And then again, quickly going back to PJ, this is going back to experience, where again, PJ has been bowling for many moons now, making these adjustments, just kind of seeing what his opponents are doing, and then make the adjustments quickly. Where Von Jaden was on a pretty good run game 1. Game 2, he kind of fell apart. Was it maybe a little lack of experience? Just missed some of the moves? And this is just, in a sense, the outcome for this game. Maybe, hopefully, Von Jaden will continue to move on in this tournament and see if he can learn from some of these errors.
And you got to remember, he is just 15 years old. So, I mean, really anything at this level is a learning experience, and hopefully he takes that, and next time he's in this situation, he's able to remember that and do just a little bit better. And, this kid's going to develop the rest of his game, and when he does, we're all in trouble. And you know, I'm kind of glad that I'm a little bit older, because when he's in his prime, I'll probably be pulling with the older guys at that point, and I won't have to deal with him. But PJ throwing a fill ball, just trying something new, already realizing he won the match. Shooting 444, and Von Jaden can strike out for a 421. So, you know, even though Von Jaden lost this game or lost this match, it's an opportunity for him to maybe experiment and try a new shot, try something different for his next match, just in case he hits that transition again where he loses the pocket. Throwing a great shot there. But Von Jaden holding his head up high, not letting the situation bring him down. You know, the cards were kind of stacked against you there. You're bowling against one of the best bowlers in really the West Coast. But you held your own. PJ with a 26-pin victory. He's going to move on in the winner's bracket, and Von Jaden's going to continue on in the elimination bracket. Alright guys, thanks for watching part 1 of the Greater Sacramento Area Masters. Tune back in for part 2 coming up next.